Good evening. I call the May 17th, 2023 Apple Valley Planning Commission meeting to order. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Kathy, are there any changes from staff?
No changes from staff, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Scanlon. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item of business is the approval of the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered routine and will be enacted with a single motion, without discussion unless a commissioner or a citizen requests to have any item separately considered. It will then be moved to the land use action items for consideration. 3A, approval for minutes of April 5th, 2023 regular meeting. What's the pleasure of the commissions?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Scanlon. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Abstain.
Motion carries. Next item of business is number 4, public hearings, and looks like there's no public hearings tonight, so we move on to number 5, land use action items. Chase Bank at Lunds and Byerlys site plan and building permit authorization. Presenter is Alex Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. As stated, this is a site plan building permit authorization for a second Chase Bank in Apple Valley. The action requested this evening is for a site plan building permit authorization for a 3,319 square foot Chase Bank facility. The formal action will be on this final slide. The site is located in the southwest corner of 155th Street and Pilot Knob Road at 15580. It is a 0.68 acre site and is the final lot left as part of the Lunds and Byerlys development. The lot already has been final platted, so it is, the only action required for them to get a building permit is the site plan building permit authorization. And then just for clarity, banks with drive-throughs do not require a conditional use permit. That is only restaurants. The overall site plan was something that staff did request as part of this so that the Planning Commission could see the pedestrian connectivity and the vehicle connectivity between the sites. The site is accessed off of English Avenue through a private access agreement that was established at the time of the final plat. Schuler's Shoes and their sidewalk plan is here that connect in, and then you'll see that there is sidewalk connection out to Pilot Knob and to the rest of the development on the south side of this site. This is the specific Chase Bank site plan. This one gets a little bit more difficult to see just because some of the hash marks. So I'll move through it a little bit quickly. The landscape plan does help quite a bit with being able to identify where everything is on site. Utilities were established as part of the Lunds Byerlys project, and stormwater was treated regionally. Utilities are coming in from Pilot Knob predominantly, and then the stormwater system is going to offsite treatment. This is the formal utility piece that's showing the power and gas and sewer coming from Pilot Knob aspect. And then the landscape plan, I think, shows things a little bit better for you, so that's why I spent the time working on the coloration of this one. But the pedestrian connectivity through the overall site with the sidewalks out to Pilot Knob and the drive-through with Chase Bank. They do have an additional drive-through lane as well. Does not look like at this time there is a teller station in that. One of the items that I questioned in the staff report is if this is just intended for escape lane or if there is going to be a future teller station in that location. Because right now the only one is shown on the side of the building. Landscape plan, we do have a couple of comments on, so you'll see conditions in the draft resolution that are seeking for additional variability in the species, as only one plant species is on the site right now. We understand that there are concerns with banks and varied species and security, so we will be working closely with the applicant on that. Similarly with the other Chase Bank, where we required that the utility meters be screened, we will be requiring that as well. That's in the draft conditions to help offset some of the additional cost of that, because that is a semi-unique condition that we've started doing recently, you can utilize part of that 2.5% landscape budget towards the cost of that screening. So they will likely have a very similar fence to what is on the existing Chase Bank. Interior shows that they will have quite a few meeting rooms, a couple of offices. The exterior is very similar, in fact, virtually identical to the existing Chase Bank. They already did include the additional window that we looked for to break up that back wall. That was something that we'd sought to try to break up just that rear portion. We will require the screening as noted over these utility banks as we did with the other site. Other than that, all materials are compliant. One item that staff will seek, and you'll see a draft condition for, is a utility screening plan as part of the, for the rooftop HVAC as part of the building permit materials. Pretty typical for us to receive those at a later date. Here are the north and south elevations, and this is that teller window that ATM that I spoke about that you can drive up to and it's served. And with that, because this is a relatively minor item with a site plan building permit authorization, the Planning Commission does have the ability to act on it this evening if they so choose. We've done this on past projects where it's just a site plan building permit authorization. If there are concerns, however, we can certainly move this to a second meeting and address some of those concerns with the plans.
Commissioners, any questions for Alex? Commissioner Scanlon?
Alex, Madam Chair, Alex, is there I wasn't able to see with the fine print, a bike rack?
Yes,
Is that to the,
Chair Kurtz, Commissioner Scanlon, right now it's not shown on the plans. There is a draft condition included in your resolution for that, as that is a code provision.
okay. And we just approved the other bank here recently, and it's real, like you said, it's just kind of a very similar with some minor things for site placement and so forth, so, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Madam Chair, I move we recommend approval of site plan building permit authorization for a 3,319 square foot building for Chase Bank, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
That was moved by Commissioner Diekman and seconded by Commissioner Schindler. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Let's see. Next up is 5B. That is Ozkan front fence variance, and that is with Kathy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Planning Commissioners. The petitioner of this request, Mr. Serhan Ozkan, requests consideration of a variance to construct a front yard fence that's taller than permitted in front yards. His property is located at 8106 Lower 147th Street West. And his action or his request is for a variance to increase the height of a front yard fence from 3.5 feet to 6 feet for a 16-foot long fence section along the west property line. The property is zone PD 341, subzone 1, which allows for smaller lot sizes and narrower lots. The fence regulations are a little bit difficult to read, so I won't spend too much time on them. But suffice it to say, fence regulations are regulated at 155351 of the city code. And the easiest way to understand it is probably looking at a diagram, and that is that all fences that are forward of the front setback line up to the front property line, the maximum height in that front yard area is 3.5 feet. The petitioner is requesting to be able to extend a fence from his side yard right in front of his garage, a distance of 16 feet, and have that fence be 6 feet tall. Then he would bring the fence down, step it down to a height of 3.5 feet. So this is kind of more illustrative, 16 feet long section at 6 feet and then down to 3.5 feet tall. Aerial photo just kind of shows his driveway. He does have a landscaped area in this side yard. Additional information will be provided, but the neighbor does have a basketball hoop on this side of the property. And with that, there's quite a bit of difficulty in trespassing and activity and trampling and kind of going onto his property. So that's the nature of the request for the taller fence, at least for that small section, that 16-foot section. So this is looking from the south, and again, just another view of the petitioner's property, and then the neighbor's property. It would be completely on his own property, so inside the property line, that side property line. This is a street view of the property. The basketball hoop is here. The landscaped area that he wishes to improve is the white rock landscape bed. And a fence company has been out, so he has located the property line. He knows where it's at, and one of the conditions will be that it has to be staked, and then he has to stay completely on his own property. The fence is proposed to be constructed of cedar, privacy fencing, and one of the conditions that is proposed is that he would either need to do a two-sided fence or to install a good neighbor fence. In other words, the finished side would be toward his neighbors, facing his neighbor, and then the bracing and the back side would be toward his property. So practical difficulties. When the city reviews a request for a variance, we start by looking at the definition of a practical difficulty. The applicant proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, not permitted by the zoning provisions of the code. The plight of the applicant is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the applicant. And the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties. So once the city looks at the definition of practical difficulty, then the next step is looking at factors. Are factors met, whether a practical difficulty exists? Special conditions, again, apply to the structure or land in question that are particular to the property. Granting of the variance will not be contrary to the intent of this chapter. Special conditions or circumstances do not result from the actions of the owner applicant. Granting of the variance will not serve as merely a convenience, but necessary to alleviate practical difficulties. And the variance requested is the minimum variance necessary. As I mentioned, Mr. Ozkan is having difficulty containing the neighbors' activities. The sports and outdoor activities are kind of overflowing onto his yard. He has spoken with his neighbor and requested that the activity be kept to only their property, and apparently he's not getting cooperation with that. So when the idea of doing a thorny shrub or something that was more physically restricting was presented as an option, he just felt that wouldn't be successful, it wouldn't work. Balls, kids, it would get trampled in and not survive. So his request is really to do the 6 foot tall fence for a short ways for the 16 feet, and then that should be enough to kind of contain the basketball court part of the driveway, and then it would go down to a normal height fence of 3.5 feet. So the physical barriers requested is separate and protect the subject property from neighbor activity. The height variance is needed to address basketball and other sports and activities that cannot be contained or protected by a 3.5-foot fence. And Madam Chair, staff is recommending approval of the variance. In the Planning Commission report, the suggested recommendation goes on to talk about the other extension of the fence, which isn't necessary, so I apologize. So as part of the motion, it would just be the 16-foot section, and then the forward. The fence altogether will be 27 feet long. 16 of it would be 6 feet tall, and then 11 feet of it would be the 3.5 feet in compliance with the code requirements. So staff is recommending conditions, fence construction consistent with the site plan and fence detail plan in the packet, installed as a good neighbor fence. We talked about that. Shall be kept in good repair and protected from the elements. And then last, homeowners shall locate property pins and stake property line locations to ensure the fence is constructed completely on his own property. So that's a quick overview, and I'd be happy to take questions if there are any. The petitioner is here this evening.
Kathy, can you go back to that picture showing his front yard, please? Sure. What I've noticed, one more back, please. One more. Okay. This is kind of the only spot where there's two garages next to each other, correct? I noticed that everything else is built differently.
That could very well be, Madam Chair. I did not review it for that, but that's a good observation.
Because I was thinking, well, has anybody else ever done that in the neighborhood? And then I looked at their garages, and it's like the garage isn't next to the other garage. So it's kind of different of how these two are built right next to each other like that, the two garages. Is there any visual problem with, I know it's 3.5 feet, but any snowplows or anything like that coming through? Is there going to be any visual issues?
That's a good question and something that staff did discuss. When the petitioner first came forward, he requested to do 6 feet all the way along the 27 feet. Our public works staff said that they were concerned about visibility, and so they asked him to step it back. So, and he was willing to do it, that 16 feet. So 3.5 feet is the height that we use for making sure clear corners and clear view. So that should be good. Yep, that should work.
Commissioner Diekman?
Madam Chair and Kathy, I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding why we would recommend that the variance be approved, because there's no logical reason why a 3.5-foot fence wouldn't contain the ball. Is there some sort of scientific proof that 6 feet contains the ball?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Diekman, my recollection of basketball back in the day is that the hoop is up 10 feet, right? So balls bouncing off of backboards and so forth. The concern is that 3.5 feet isn't tall enough to contain it.
I still struggle to find out why the 6 feet is required. And across the street, there are two garages next to each other. So, and you can see the two driveways. I'm struggling to understand. I mean, obviously I can tell they don't want the balls going on that side of the garage.
Sure.
That is not a practical difficulty. What happens when the people next door move? Does the fence have to be removed? Right? Like, this doesn't make sense to me to give a variance based on the homeowners, not the land. That's my opinion.
Okay. Commissioner Scanlon.
Madam Chair, Kathy, now the fence is just going to be this, like you said, it's just over 20 feet long, total length?
27.
27. So it's not going to go back and terminate with the fence in the backyard.
Yes, it will. Yep, so,
It will?
the concern is the area forward of the front of the garage.
Correct.
Otherwise, the fence will be connecting with the chain link fence that exists today.
Okay, and then that'll be 6 feet going all the way to the back, or 3
I
feet?
believe that that is true. If it's taller than 7 feet, he would need to get a building permit, but otherwise would be permitted by the zoning code.
Good.
I guess I'm having some of the same thoughts as Commissioner Diekman, why it seems like we're using a variance to mitigate neighborly concerns and not property. That's what I'm kind of struggling with right now. And there's no guarantee that, as Commissioner Diekman has already pointed out, that 6 feet's going to prevent a ball from going over when they're playing basketball. That's kind of what I'm grappling with also, so, thank you.
Commissioner Sandell?
Madam Chair, Kathy, I'm having similar concerns as well. When I saw the 6 foot initially, I thought basketball hoop's 10 feet. You know, you miss a shot and it's going over. In addition to that, this isn't like a forever problem. Kids grow up, you know, like this. So to put in a permanent fence like this just feels like Commissioner Scanlon said with the, it feels like a variance not related to property issues. So I'm struggling with this as well.
Sure. So, and just to kind of address that a little bit from staff standpoint, I guess my analysis was the fence helps him to have a reasonable use of his property. That's where I landed on it. But the petitioner is here to make his own presentation and answer questions if that would be of help, Madam Chair.
I just want to read the letter too that he sent in. He said the 6 foot high fence in the front yard is much needed to protect my landscaping, which cost me thousands of dollars. So I was expecting to see plants and bushes and everything, but to me, it's just stone, rock that is there.
Yep, for now, yep. There is one shrub.
There's a tree
The-
there.
Yeah, the tree clump.
Commissioner Schindler?
Madam Chair, Kathy. Can you go, so if, looking at the screen right now, can you go back to the shot that showed the hoop?
Am I going the right direction? No.
Right there.
There.
Is that it? There.
That's not a permanently mounted hoop, is it?
No.
Just one you can move around. Couldn't they just move it to the other side of the driveway so that if it misses, it goes into their own yard?
I think that's a very fair question, and the neighbor has been asked to make that change and has not been interested in making that change. I believe.
And then so where the fence will terminate, it's gonna be where they have a cyclone fence type of thing?
Right, right.
But that's-
Toward the back, so that's
And that's
back.
what, like, a typical 3.5 feet, 4 feet?
Yeah, I would ask for the property owner to give you that info. So basically, the fence would be extended from the cyclone fence down along that property line or just inside of it.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Scanlon?
Madam Chair, Kathy, I guess I was going to bring up the same thing about moving the basketball hoop. Is there any position the city has with basketball hoops, whether they're permanent or temporary, as far as how they're placed, where they're placed?
When it comes to recreational play equipment, it's a little bit limited. It almost starts to get down to a private dispute between the neighbors. The city does not have an ordinance that would prevent someone from putting a basketball hoop in their side yard or front yard or, so.
Okay, thank you.
Has the neighbor been approached, did you say, with the fence, and they are okay with it?
Yes.
Okay. Are you the neighbor? No, okay. Would you like to speak, sir?
Sure. Good evening.
Please
So-
give us your name and
Okay.
address.
I'm Serhan Ozkan. I reside at 8106 Lower 147th Street West. I've been living there for the last 3 years. I respectfully request a variance for the, as Kathy explained, like 16 feet length of fence, the 6 foot height. The reason because, as Kathy explained, I've been having nothing but problems with the neighbor. And I've been respectful to them, but he's very disrespectful. His kids, he's got like 4 or 5 kids. You know, they play basketball, football, soccer. So they like, you know, they're all over my yard. Which I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man. I love kids. You know, I mean, I've been nice to them always. But the neighbor is like very problematic. You know, he listens to loud music all the time. He wakes me up. I just not only for like aesthetically, you know, I don't want the fence for aesthetic purposes. I want the fence for my privacy and protect myself. Like, I mean, he's also known that he carries a gun. I mean, you know, so I'm kind of afraid to actually live there. I just want the safety and privacy and protect my my landscaping. And by the way, landscaping is still in the process. I have actually the guys coming over to plant like perennials and some shrubs. So that's basically.
So there is more of an issue than just the,
Yes, yes,
Basketball hoop.
yeah. It's just not, yeah.
and you did ask him to move it to the other side?
The hoop? No, I did not. But I talked to them, you know, can your kids just be careful here? I mean, they don't have any respect, so.
And they really had no problem with you saying that you wanted to put a fence up? They were for
No,
it?
yeah, I talked to him, like he said, yeah, go ahead. So,
Anybody have questions? Okay. Anything else you wanted to add, sir?
no,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome, thank you.
Commissioner Diekman?
Madam Chair, while I can understand the difficulties that this situation poses, I'm still finding it hard to grant a variance or support granting a variance for the land that is not actually encumbered. The property owner has the right to build a 3.5-foot fence. I did not heard anything yet that would say that the land requires a 6-foot fence. If we're gonna allow a 6-foot fence here, when land is not encumbered, we would have to allow it everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the 6 foot, I think, is what's bothering everybody, right? It's kind of,
By definition, that's what the variance is for.
and to me, I'm just hearing that it's more than just, there's lots of other issues going on. And I don't know that the 6-foot fence is gonna resolve a lot of those issues either, you know? Commissioner Scanlon?
Madam Chair, Kathy, in situations like this, what is, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyways, the city's position of if there's an issue, in this case, a basketball hoop, and where it's been located on the property, that the city make a request that it be moved to a different location because of problems that it's causing?
Madam Chair. if
Thank you, please.
The answer to the question is no.
Yeah.
There is no code provision regarding where to put a basketball hoop, unless, of course, it was in the right of way. And the issue is purely a private civil dispute between neighbors, and the city will not get involved with those.
Doesn't necessarily mean that he can't approach law enforcement, right, to ask them if they could help out or something, or,
Law enforcement is for purposes of crimes, so, you know,
preventing crime?
not,
If crimes are
not to mediate neighbor disputes. Certainly, if a situation arises
Sure,
where
I
he
understand.
has issues or concerns about his own security, yes, he should call the police.
Commissioner Mahowald?
Madam Chair, I think I echo probably the concerns that everybody has. It's unfortunate that there's a situation like this and that the neighbor won't do more to prevent the basketball and other things coming onto the yard. I mean, there are very temporary backstops that you can have that are like a mesh character, kind of, that can be put over the back of a basketball hoop to prevent the ball from coming. That would be far cheaper than a fence, provided that the neighbor would be willing to do it. It is an unfortunate situation. It's, but I guess I share Commissioner Diekman's concerns that it's the nature of the dispute doesn't necessarily raise a land issue, in my opinion. It's unfortunate, and I wish I could just say, yeah, because this actually seems like a very reasonable way with a 6-foot fence for that short distance. Doesn't seem like that much of a intrusion, or that it would stand out and create this eyesore of a situation. However, if we're looking at what the practical difficulties are, how that term would be defined, I kind of lean more towards what I understand Commissioner Diekman's position to be, because if you look at the fourth condition, and again, all 4 of those conditions or all 5 of those must be satisfied. It's my understanding, and that the second or the last clause of item 4, but is necessary to alleviate practical difficulties in complying with the zoning provisions of this code. I think that, again, as has been stated before, relates to the conditions of the land, not behaviors that have nothing to do per se with the nature of the land. So that's, I think this is an unfortunate situation, and while I think a 6-foot fence would probably resolve the issue, I just don't know that it's a textbook example or a clear example of a valid variance request.
Commissioner Schindler?
Madam Chair, Kathy, I agree with what's been said. I don't think this meets the difficulties test, in my opinion. There's no reason he can put the 3.5-foot fence the whole distance. The other thing I would say is, a lot of kids don't play things for very long. And if it's just a little temporary basketball hoop, it doesn't sound to me like you're talking about. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think he can work within the code, and that might be enough to alleviate. It's going to at least stop the rolling balls. And to be honest, if it's a ball that they're shooting at the basket and they miss, it's going to go right over the 6-foot fence. And it's just going to be more time they're going to spend going around, I don't know. I just don't think it meets the test. I guess I can leave it at that.
I agree. I think if the ball goes over, you're going to have the kids running around it anyway. They're not going to eliminate not going into the yard.
Or trying to climb it.
Anybody else? What is the pleasure?
I have one question I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
Kathy?
Scanlon?
I think there's a consensus coming about from all of us. Prior to a vote, though, is there an option just to step back and not take a vote on this tonight? But I don't know what other options there are for the applicant to make changes other than go with the 3-foot fence, which doesn't require our input on. So I'm just trying to think out loud a little bit if there's any reason to, waiting would assist in this process, but I guess there isn't. As I'm talking through it, we haven't come up with a solution ourselves and to try to mitigate it, so. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I move we recommend denial of a variance to increase the height of a front yard fence running along the west property line from 3 foot to 6 foot for 16 feet, stepping down 3.5 feet for the distance of 11 feet shown in the attached site plan and detailed fence plan.
Second.
That was moved by Commissioner Diekman and seconded by Commissioner Schindler. Any discussions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Doesn't carry. Always a hard decision on this one, so. Okay, moving along, we've got other business, and I see Tim Benetti is back, so welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Sorry I'm a little late. I was at a little gathering at Uponor. I hope our city planner, Alex, filled you in on some details, but the ambassador of U.S., or the Finnish ambassador to the U.S., Hatala, His Excellency, was there, did a little presentation. So if you've ever had a chance to go see that facility, it's quite
What, Uponor? Yeah.
a fantastic facility. We should be proud to have a facility like that. So I just want to give you a quick update. We do have some upcoming meetings for June 7th and June 21st. I believe we have 3, potentially 4 items coming up on the June 7th agenda. One of them, or 2 of them with the high schools, Apple Valley High School and Eastview High School, for some additional storage buildings. We also have a new daycare that's being proposed, and also a zoning text amendment. Also, our city council will be meeting on May 25th and June 8th. Some of you, Jody, I'm going to embarrass you tonight. But,
Are you?
Yes.
Well,
You,
maybe the first time I've been embarrassed.
a few weeks ago, council had a little honorary cake cutting or cake ceremony for those members of the commission or committees who have served our community. And Jody, you were out of town, I believe, that night.
was.
So if you would permit me, I'd like to read her proclamation into the record and give you some accolades. This proclamation, whereas volunteers have enriched the life of our community through their concern, commitment, generosity of spirit. And whereas the hard work and commitment of volunteers have made our community a better place in which to live. And whereas volunteers are a vital resource and contribute to health, education, welfare, recreation, culture, and environment of the city of Apple Valley. Whereas, the city of Apple Valley wishes to thank its volunteers for their dedicated services and generous spirit. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Apple Valley, Dakota County, Minnesota, in conjunction with National Volunteer Week of April 16th through the 22nd, 2023, hereby recognizes Ms. Jody Kurtz for 6 years of service on the Planning Commission. It urges all of its citizens to recognize volunteers who contribute their time, talent, and energy. Proclaimed this 13th day of April, 2023. It's official. It's signed by Mayor Hoopa and Pam Gaxter. So we'd like to present this to you. We've also wished to present to you the Apple Award.
Apple.
So come on up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a gold Rolex. There you go.
It is a Rolex.
Kind of is.
That's gorgeous, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's better than a Rolex.
All right.
Thank
Congratulations.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Here's your,
you. My pleasure.
your little wrapper. That's all I have for tonight. If you have any questions, happy to take them at this time or talk to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Motion?
Move we adjourn?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Scanlon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.